The afternoon my cul-de-sac turned into a courtroom. The HOA accidentally achieved quorum because everyone showed up for pulled pork and drama. We'd planned a wholesome Americana baby welcome, red Solo cups, Costco sheet cake, the flag snapping over the driveway like a witness raising its right hand. I had a slideshow cued on the smart TV. My hand on her belly at 12 weeks, me painting the nursery the exact shade called Pacifier Moon, me installing a car seat like I was defusing a bomb in an action movie made for dads. I was the proud husband, baptized in lawn care, baptized in brisket, ready to make a toast to our perfect little family. Then I pressed play, and the slideshow didn't end with, "It's a boy," or fireworks. It ended with a PDF labeled Paternity Report, and that was the first time I learned how silent 100 plastic chairs can be. The printer had left a watermark you could see even on the TV. 0% to probability of paternity. I had practiced saying the words all week, but my mouth betrayed me, staggered like it couldn't carry the weight of betrayal itself. Someone's plate clinked against the folding table. Someone's cooler sighed open. My neighbor, the one with the pressure washer and the unsolicited advice, stood there in those evangelical cargo shorts like a man caught trying to steal Christmas. His name is Trevor, the kind of American name that smells like Axe body spray and a podcast about the Roman Empire. My wife, let's call her Melissa, because that is in fact her name, went white, then red, then angry purple. The patriotic spectrum of a cheating wife who never thought the 4th of July would come with lab results. I heard the word infidelity tumble from the mouth of our HOA treasurer like it was a zoning violation. Someone muttered toxic love, like it was on the potluck sign-up list between potato salad and deviled eggs. Here's the part where you expect throwing punches, but this is suburban America, and we know lawyers faster than we know martial arts. Instead, I raised my cup and tried for humor, because parody is the only cure for humiliation that arrives on a PDF. To family, I said, and even the wind looked confused. To revenge, I added, and the wind perked up like a gossip columnist. The projector hummed. On screen, the lab's corporate logo twinkled beside my favorite photo. Me kissing the baby's forehead in the hospital, the expression of a man who thought he'd won the lottery right up until the lottery called and said, "Actually, your neighbor is holding the ticket." I watched myself weep in 4K and felt a double life peel off my skin like a bad sunburn. The folks from across the cul-de-sac, the ones with the commemorative Live Laugh Lake sign, stared like the TV had morphed into a portal to the Department of Betrayal. Melissa's voice came in hot, saying it was a mistake, saying she'd meant to tell me privately, saying she loved me, and this didn't have to be a federal case. But the HOA secretary was already taking minutes. The thing about conspiracy theories is that they bloom wherever certainty dies. By the time the PDF hit slide 3, you could hear whispers. "Did you see how the baby's hair curls like Trevor's? Doesn't he always help with her groceries? I heard they were doing goat yoga together." Goats, which is basically an ancient fertility rite at this point. My neighbor with the drone offered to review aerial footage purely for research. The 4th of July bunting drooped like it had heard enough. I realized I was delivering my closing argument to a jury of homeowners with grill tongs for gavels. And because this is America, someone yelled, "Put it on next door," as if our neighborhood app were the Supreme Court. I didn't throw a punch. I didn't throw the cake. I didn't even throw the baby formula coupons lying next to the deviled eggs. I stood and told the truth like a man reciting Miranda rights to his own heart. My wife is pregnant. I celebrated, I believed. Then the DNA test told me she was carrying the neighbor's child. Call it cheating, call it betrayal, call it the algorithm's favorite topic, but it's my life. I know parody when I see it, and my life had been rewritten as a satire of the American dream. Garage door up, trust down, Spotify playlist full of breakup anthems. The TV screen froze on the lab's 0.00 like a game show scoreboard. The grill smoke curled into a question mark. Somewhere far away, a child laughed, and I swear it sounded like a canned sitcom track. By the time the sun slid behind the hickory trees, the party had dissolved into clustered conversations and expert opinions. The choir of barbecue dads hummed, "You lawyered yet?" The choir of dance moms whispered, "We always knew." Trevor hovered, talking in circles about misunderstandings and timelines, his mouth a GPS stuck on recalculating. Melissa stared at the driveway like it might open and swallow her alibi. I took one last look at the nursery cam on my phone, glanced at the rocking chair I'd assembled wrong twice, and knew we were not at the end of anything. We were at page 1, a reversed novel that begins with the last chapter. Cue the American flag. Cue the national anthem if you want. This is the land of strip mall genomics and HOA tribunals. This is where my story starts. Months earlier, back when the world made sense and my heart still came with a warranty, I'd gone full evangelical dad about the pregnancy. The night Melissa told me, I sprinted out to Kroger like a man chasing a parade, and bought sparkling cider, 3 kinds of cookies, and a tiny onesie that said, "New to the crew." I made a playlist called Fatherhood Clean because I pictured a future where my son would absorb all the classic rock without the classic regret. We did the American rituals, ultrasound appointments where I nodded like I could read the weather on grainy clouds, nursery paint samples with names like Crib Whisper and Lactose Horizon, Target runs where I learned the difference between a swaddle and a sleep sack and then forgot it 3 feet later. I took photos of Melissa laughing in line at Costco next to an industrial pack of paper towels like she was the queen of resource management. That winter, I shoveled snow with a cape on because that's what it felt like, becoming a dad in a Marvel origin story where the superpower is being constantly prepared. Our neighbor Trevor drifted into our lives like a helpful commercial you didn't ask for. He leaned over the fence with tips for lawn aeration and the markets. He fixed our mailbox as a neighborly favor, and then mentioned he had a podcast about masculinity and power washers. He coached Little League, though he didn't have kids. He knew his way around a brisket and a Bluetooth pairing menu. He had opinions about everything from mortgages to baby names. "You need a name that looks good on a Little League jersey," he said. "Like Hunter or Colt." He talked like a man who was seeing the universe. But this is America, and America runs on borrowed ladders and passive-aggressive kindness. And I, naive, earnest, drunk on the smell of new crib wood, welcomed help. We were a family in the making. Who says no to a man with a torque wrench and a smoked meat schedule? It didn't turn bad overnight. Cheating, I've learned, has the patience of a cat and the timing of a sitcom. The first red flag looked like a white noise machine, innocuous, necessary, always on. Melissa got secretive about her phone and said it was pregnancy mood swings. She started going to yoga, even though she used to call yoga lying on the floor with extra steps. A Venmo popped up labeled Studio Tithe, which is either a church for hamstrings or a joke I didn't get. She said she needed air. And okay, pregnancy. She said her back hurt, and okay, pregnancy. She said she was craving Pop-Tarts at 11 p.m., and okay, Pop-Tarts. Meanwhile, I worked late because babies cost money, and diapers are the new Bitcoin. I'd come home to find Trevor's truck in our driveway because he was helping with the crib, like cribs needed an entire pit crew. The night we announced the pregnancy to the neighborhood, we did it with a cake that bled blue frosting like a promposal exploded. Everyone cheered. Melissa cried. Trevor hugged us both like he was an usher at our miracle. Later, when I opened next door to soak in the applause, I found our streets thread already debating the ethics of fireworks versus newborn nap schedules. America is an engine for opinion, and I was riding it like a man who didn't read the manual. If life were a parody, you'd see the montage. Me assembling a stroller in the living room, cussing at a hex key, Melissa texting and smiling, Trevor dropping by with a six-pack, and a story about a man who stepped up for a kid that wasn't his, as if auditioning for his own redemption arc. When doubt finally cracked my skull, it was because my Ring camera captured a shadow wearing a yoga mat at midnight. The footage showed a pair of feet and a laugh, the particular laugh of someone who believes in their own invincibility. I told myself it was a delivery driver wearing athleisure. I told myself I was paranoid because the internet loves betrayal content the way toddlers love cereal. Melissa swore I was spiraling, and I wanted to be the kind of husband who trusts. I read an article about toxic love that said jealousy is insecurity dressed like a detective. I closed the tab and kissed my wife goodnight. I pictured our kid throwing a baseball in the yard while I pretended to be bad at catching. I pictured 4th of July sparklers and little shoes thrown by the door. I pictured family. I turned off the Ring alerts. Meanwhile, the universe kept setting a table I refused to see. A receipt for a smoothie for two tucked in a prenatal vitamins bag. A stray hoodie in our mudroom that smelled like smoked meat and hoodie entitlement. A text on Melissa's lock screen that said, "Same time," with a flexed bicep emoji, which would have been funny if I'd known I was the punchline. Modern cheating is a dance between algorithms and alibis. You can hide in the noise of 1,000 notifications. You can outsource your conscience to group chats. I went to bed that night with my hand on Melissa's stomach and told myself everything would be okay. And then I dreamed I was building a crib made of glass. I wish I could say I calmly requested a DNA test like a man ordering a sandwich. What happened was an 8-episode mini-series about a suburban guy whose search history could get him put on a watch list. First, I bought the kit online. 2, actually, because this is America, and we buy backups for our backups. And when they arrived, it felt like Christmas morning, if Christmas morning came with sterile cotton swabs and actuarial tables. I watched YouTube tutorials like they were heist films. I practiced swabbing on a grape. I plotted a timeline on a whiteboard from Office Depot and drew arrows and circled the nights with yoga and wrote, "Who goes to yoga at midnight?" in medium tip red. I became a mod in a subreddit called r/suburban detectives under the username dadproof. I assembled an evidence board with red yarn from Michael's, which is what you do when betrayal teaches you to connect dots you never wanted to see. There were snags. The first kit came back insufficient sample, which I took personally, even though it was the baby who drooled like a fountain. The second kit's tracking number got weirdly stuck in an Amazon locker, and I had to explain to a teenager that it contained family business. The FedEx driver started greeting me by name. The lab's emails arrived like cliffhangers, processing, reviewing, quality control. And I found myself narrating updates to my own private camera as if I were the star of a true crime mockumentary. He thought he was a father. He was wrong. Tonight at 9. I'm not proud of this, but I bought a trucker hat that said, "Trust but verify," because self-parody is the last refuge of the humiliated. Waiting for results is modern purgatory. Your phone becomes a slot machine. Your heart toggles between hope and revenge fantasies like it's flipping through channels on a hotel remote. I pictured Melissa confessing and us healing and naming the baby after my father. I pictured yelling betrayal in a courtroom where the judge is a man in a lawn chair. I pictured Trevor moving to a state where no one knows what he did. In the evenings, I'd walk the cul-de-sac and get updates from ghosts. A garden gnome in Trevor's yard that stared at me like a snitch. A yoga flyer on a stop sign advertising moonlit classes with goats. The goat was named Clementine, which somehow made it worse. An HOA newsletter reminding us to keep our trash can lids secure, as if any lid could keep this trash inside. And yet there were tender moments with the baby. He'd fall asleep on my chest, tiny lungs going up and down like a second chance. My heart could not compute revenge while my shirt collected warm milk. This is the part the internet doesn't clip for views, the massive abundance of love unmoored from DNA. If love were math, I would have failed algebra. If love were a country, I would have crossed the border illegally and begged to stay. But love in America also runs alongside spreadsheets and legal counsel. Infidelity doesn't just break hearts, it rearranges budgets. I started Googling words like declaratory judgment and equitable estoppel, and then watched cat videos because only a cat falling off a counter can save you from legalese. The lab finally emailed a day earlier than expected. I opened the PDF in the car because I couldn't wait to get home to a stable Wi-Fi signal. Somewhere a country station hummed, "Even the best fall down sometimes," and I laughed like a man breaking. The number was there, clinical as math, 0.0. I closed my eyes and the whole neighborhood rewound like a VHS, paint chips back into canisters, Trevor's truck reversing out of the driveway, Melissa's laugh returning to the person who provoked it. In the rearview mirror, I looked like an extra in my own life. I drove to the strip mall, parked between a vape store and a donut shop, and called my brother because brothers are America's original therapy. He said, "Do you want to come over?" And I said, "No, I want revenge." And he said, "The kind you can live with. That's the only kind you can have if you want to keep your soul out of pawn." Before I confronted anyone, I tested reality one more time. I ordered a third kit from a rival company, because if 3 different labs tell you the sky is blue, you hang up on the meteorologist who says it's mauve. Same result. The universe had spoken like a bored barista calling my name. I printed the PDFs at the UPS store, and the guy behind the counter tried to upsell me on cardstock. "Something this important," he said. "You may want sturdier paper." He was right. If betrayal is going to knock you down, you may as well land on something thick. Revenge feels good in movies because the credits roll before the consequences arrive. In real life, you have to see the neighbors again on trash day. So I planned a version of revenge that fit the zip code and my conscience, the kind of American justice achievable with a binder, a podcast cancellation, and an HOA bylaw about fences over 6 feet. First, I told the truth because truth is the only weapon that doesn't bounce back and hit you. Melissa got a lawyer who spoke like a GPS for damaged marriages. I got a lawyer who looked like a man who ate paperwork for breakfast. We met in a conference room with glass walls, a fishbowl of people trying not to drown, and divided furniture like we were drafting a fantasy football team for a league neither of us wanted to join. She cried. I cried. Trevor sent a text that said, "Can we talk man to man?" Which is funny because the last time he did that, he brought a torque wrench. I didn't set his truck on fire. I didn't throw a brick through his podcast equipment. I did, however, inform his sponsors, who were very interested in brand alignment and somewhat less interested in being aligned with a cheating wife's co-star. When your content shtick is family values, betrayal hits different. The episode where he discussed the sanctity of the home now sounds like a confession with ad breaks. I posted exactly one thing on Nextdoor, a calm, clinical note about paternity and timelines. I included the phrase, "respectfully requesting privacy," which in our neighborhood is code for "respectfully please make popcorn." I changed my Wi-Fi network name to "Ask Your Mom About Trevor." Petty, of course. Petty is revenge's appetizer. The HOA, bless its clerical heart, decided to enforce rules equally, which meant Trevor's beloved fence would need to shrink by 12 inches. You haven't lived until you've seen a man who built his personality on plumb lines argue with a measuring tape. "It's about community sight lines," the HOA chair said, reciting the gospel. I mowed my lawn in neat stripes and waved. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about balance. If you tilt my life, I'll tilt yours in proportion. Meanwhile, I started therapy, which is revenge on my worst habits. My therapist said betrayal rewires you, but you can rewire back. You just have to choose what circuits you want to keep. I chose humor, boundaries, and a refusal to audition for anyone else's tragedy. I also met the baby's gaze, because babies don't do conspiracy or culpability. He smiled like a sunrise that hadn't learned to be ashamed. I held him and said a prayer that had no words. We arranged visits that were humane and legally sound. Family is a word that can survive a lot when adults behave like adults. Toxic love is not invited, but compassion is. My mother mailed me a casserole and a card that said, "This too shall pass, but while it passes, you need protein." Only in America could grief and recipe cards arrive in the same envelope. People ask if I'd undo the celebration at the beginning if I could, if I'd erase the nursery paint, the tiny shoes, the playlists. I wouldn't. Joy is not guilt's accomplice. Joy was real when it happened. You don't prosecute your past self for not seeing what present you can't unsee. Betrayal is a terrible teacher, but it teaches. Cheating maps the fault lines, but it doesn't get to name the land. I still believe in love. I just lock the back gate now. I still believe in family. I just don't confuse proximity with loyalty. Infidelity took my first draft of fatherhood and wrote, "Try again," in red ink. I will. With someone who knows that vows aren't Wi-Fi passwords you change when convenient. As for Melissa, I don't make a villain of her to keep my dignity warm. She did a villainous thing, but stories with only villains and saints are propaganda. She is a complicated American human who made a series of spectacularly bad, selfish choices, and then rode the momentum until it threw her. She wanted magic without the maintenance. She wanted a conspiracy big enough to hide inside. She lied to me, and I loved her, and those two facts sit together like mismatched chairs at a yard sale. The courts will stamp papers. The neighborhood will find a new saga. The HOA will revise the bylaws to cover paternity PDFs at block parties. And me? I'm learning to be ordinary again, making coffee, jogging past the place where my life exploded into a parody of itself, buying a new paint color not named for infants. If you're looking for a moral, I don't have one, but I can offer an advisory like a highway sign. If you see the red flags, don't redecorate them. If your gut starts narrating like a true crime podcast, listen. If your neighbor installs your crib unasked, ask why. And if you stand in a driveway holding a cup and a PDF while your world resets to factory settings, know this: you are not alone. America was built by people who rebuilt. Revenge feels good for a minute. Integrity feels good forever. This is my testimony before the court of plastic chairs. This is my confession and my acquittal. My cheating wife didn't end me. She just ended the version of me who thought love was a force field. Turns out it's a choice you renew, like a streaming subscription, except you can't share the password.